West to recuperate in the 1950s. So this park, along with portions of the Florida Keys Overseas Heritage Trail and Coupon Bight Aquatic Preserve, will now be part of the Spotswood Heritage Trail as well. So James Monroe's legacy is built on service, sacrifice, and vision. His Monroe Doctrine established our country as the guardian of the hemisphere. He obviously had huge impact by making sure that Florida became part of the American Republic. We're proud to honor him today. I think, are we going to hear from the speakers and then do this? Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we unveil it, and then we'll call up Cord, and we'll call up these other guys. Go ahead. There you go, guys. All right. Handsome devil there. He looks good. All right. All right, Cord.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Governor, and thank you to Monroe County. This is Florida weather. This feels like Florida, so thank you for doing that. But one of the things that people don't often think about is the Florida's significance at the founding, and that's why we've billed our 250th anniversary initiative as the 14th colony. So we're really telling that history. And James Monroe understood the strategic importance of Florida, which the governor reiterated in his remarks. And it is fitting that on July 3rd, 1823, Monroe County was named in his honor. Every mile of coastline and acre of our beautiful landscape serve as a monument to a president who saw the potential of Florida, its resources, and its strategic geographical placement as an asset to the building and protection of the nation. And today, just as in President Monroe's era, Florida continues to play an important role on the global stage, with Florida leading the way and setting the pace for the rest of the country, and our commemoration of America 250 is no exception. And when I was preparing for today, I always like to have a quote or two of who we're discussing, and I really like this one from President Monroe. He says, "Our country may be likened to a new house. We lack many things, but we possess the most precious of all, liberty." And that is why the governor has built Florida the free state of Florida. We are the free state of Florida. We are the free people, whether it's under COVID or even today. We're leading the rest of the nation, and we're really leaning into 250 and the celebration. And really, it's incumbent upon us, the older generations, to teach our young people about what's happening.
Last week, all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh. Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, whomever you may be and wherever you may be. To you I say Shalom, Yeshua, Shalom. So as we just played that short clip there, which I was going to place it inside of my news that I have, but I didn't realize, I thought it was like short, but I didn't realize it was like 38 minutes long, however it was. So I clipped out just the little tiny bit that I needed. I didn't need to hear him talk about all this stuff. And so as that clip that we just played, which is not the first time they've erected, I want to say it because YouTube sometimes will be messing with dates and things of that nature. But I saw one clip that was like 11 months ago where they also erected a George Washington statue, and it's not the first time they've erected statues, taken statues down, and so on and so forth. But why this caught my eye was interesting because this is about another statue just coming up. I think it was guy Ron DeSantis who was giving the speech. I think another guy spoke too. But anyways, of James Monroe, 5th president. Okay. So, typical information here. We may actually pull up the wiki. Cause of death, tuberculosis. And bear with me a second. I'm gonna relocate. All right. So, like I was saying here, James Monroe, born April 28, 1758, Monroe Hall, Virginia, died in New York by tuberculosis. And if I'm correct, I actually type it in at some point if I don't forget. I want to say he was a Freemason, but who knows if Google will give us the straightforward answer there. Now, I want to drop down a couple of these menus. Really just one I wanted to drop down, but as I look back into it again, as I pull it up before we, push record, I saw another menu I'm going to drop down here. So I'm going to pull this one up first. So it says, what is James Monroe famous for? In the AI overview, it says James Monroe is known for his presidency 1817 to 1825 during the era of good feelings. marked by nationalism, negotiating, this is something we talked about, all right, the Louisiana Purchase, okay? And, you know, this is just the pride of the devil doing what he's doing. We can't even be mad. But you know, them erecting yet another statue of you know, especially of this, you know, or any really, I mean, because it's hard to say this particular president or whatever the case may be, this particular person, because it's all of them. But I think you get my point that I'm coming from, because the way that America was established was off of slave labor of Israelites, both of the northern and southern kingdom. And so for them to erect yet another statue of an Edomite, okay, who was all about, you know, the colonization of America, which is the stealing of land, okay, and rebranding it after them, their names and so on and so forth, their territories, from, you know, Israelites, all right, for them to, you know, continue doing this. But this, once again, this is the devil in his rulership doing what he does best. Boasting, all right, the pride of his heart has deceived him. So it says he negotiated the Louisiana Purchase, acquiring Florida, okay, the Missouri Compromise, and issuing the Seminole Monroe Doctrine. And we know, we've already talked about the Seminole Indians, where they drove them to central, you know, Florida and the swamp areas, and then eventually, after pushing them into those, you know, jacked up terrains, they went to push them entirely out of Florida. Okay, as a matter of fact, let me see if I can pull up that Genesis verse there. In Genesis, and we'll go read Reuben real quick, just for a quick history note. Genesis, the 49th chapter. All right, and it says Reuben, verse 3, Genesis 49:3. Reuben, which are the Seminole and the Indians, so called, okay, the tribe of Reuben. All right, Ra'awaban, it says, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, because he was the firstborn, which originally he had rights to the firstborn son, which would get a double portion of the father's estate and whatever else blessing the father would give him, and then the rest of, you know, whoever else would just get, you know, a blessing that the father would give them. But that firstborn son would get a blessing, and on top of that blessing, he would get a double portion of his father's estate because he had the rights of firstborn. But that was given up because he transgressed against his father by laying with one of his concubines. So it went down to Joseph, okay? And, you know, and through Joseph, you know, we get the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh, all right? Manasseh, the oldest, which are the so-called Cubans today, and Ephraim, the youngest, being the so-called Puerto Ricans today. And when you look at the map, Ephraim had not have as a major large amount of land, but Manasseh definitely had East Manasseh and West Manasseh, called East and West because it was on either side of the Jordan River. All right, small, you know, sticky notes there for you. Just tap those on the side. So it says, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. Unstable as water, being nomadic people, thou shalt not excel. Because thou wentest up to my father's bed, which is what we just talked about. Then defilest thou it. He went up to my couch. So, you know, he slept with one of his father's concubines, one of his father's women, and so the rights of the firstborn were stripped from him. And also going into those, you know, he shall not excel, because going into those Seminole Wars, all right, because you had 3 Seminole Wars. You had the first Seminole War, then you had the antebellum period, which would be the time period between the first Seminole War and the second Seminole War. So then you have that. Then you have the third Seminole War, and the second antebellum, if I said it right, is the time period between the second Seminole War and the third Seminole War. All right. So yeah, and let's go back over here to this. Actually, I have my tab up here because it was talking about what yep, the Louisiana Purchase, acquiring Florida, the Missouri Compromise, and issuing the Seminole Monroe Doctrine. And I believe the last thing we talked about was something up in Philadelphia. I can't remember when, that might have been a month ago because the time be moving fast. But yeah, and also we could have read, you know, a little bit about Gad too. just, referring to the Northern Kingdom in general. Here we go, right here. Gad, a troop shall overcome, which was the U.S. cavalry, but he shall overcome at the last. All right, it's just quick scripture there, a little scriptural history. But get back into the topic, though. So it says, which warned European powers against further colonization or interference in the Americas. Is that not, arrogance and pride of the devil? You came, you raped, you robbed, you stole, you befriended, and then backstabbed the natives that were here, which were Israelites, and then built this place off of their slave labor. And then you turn around to tell other European, colonizers that no more. Okay. And this, also plays out today, because you have the Monroe Doctrine. And then what are they calling it now? The Donroe Doctrine, referring to Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, we may actually punch that in. I'll probably pull up another tab, because if I don't, we'll lose this. And as a matter of fact, we'll do that now in case I forget. So we'll do that now. And we'll paste that there. Not you. Get out the way. Here we go. Monroe Doctrine. All right. Articulated by President James Monroe in 1823. The Monroe Doctrine established a foundational U.S. foreign policy declaring the Western Hemisphere closed to further European colonization and interference. See? It aimed to protect the independence of new Latin American nations while establishing U.S. influence, establishing separate spheres of influence between the old and new world. All right. Key principles of the Monroe Doctrine. Non-colonization. The American continents were no longer subjects for future colonization by European powers. This is what we just talked about. The arrogance of these people, man. This place is no longer under colonization. As if you didn't colonize it. Man, separated spheres. Europe and the Americas were distinct spheres with different political systems. And even then they fought against each other. What's that? Revelation 6:4. That was given unto them a great sword, that they should take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another. They did it in all their rulerships. They did it under the Greeks. One of those things that comes to mind. What they call it? The War of the Diadoches, all right? Alexander's generals fighting against one another to take over his territories. Romans. Need we say more? Romans. All over, okay? People getting checked out all over. All right? Senates, Caesars, everything. All right? And even to this very day. Okay? And even had the because that's also in the scriptures in both Daniel 7. Let's get it. Daniel 7, as well as Revelation, the 17th chapter. I don't know exactly what verse it is in Daniel, but I know exactly where to go in Revelation 17. So just bear with me 2 ticks here. We'll see if we can find it. Okay. Verse 23, thus he said, the fourth beast, which is talking about the ancient Roman Empire, shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And they even have their time up called the Pax Romana, which translates into Roman peace. Okay. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. Now, as we go over to Revelation 17, is going to break this down more, okay? Because Daniel gives it a more heavier wording, all right? But of course, you still have to have the understanding of it to even get in the first place. But Daniel, the verses here in Daniel gives it a more heavy wording, which is why we're still going to go over to Revelation 17 to chop it all up. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and to think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time, which are prophetic years, 350 years. Okay. So let's jump over there now. Just wanted to read that because I know it was in Daniel, as well as Revelation 17 chapter. So let's go over here now. All right. Oh, we passed it. So We want to start at verse, I guess right here where we are, verse 9. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And this woman is the great whore that you read about in the top of the chapter, which is Babylon the Great, aka America the West. Okay. So it says, and there are 7 kings. 7 kings being Germania Major, the Greeks, the Romans, Germania Major, Germania Minor, the French, the Spanish, and the British. All right. 5 are fallen, which will be the Greeks, Germania Major, Germania Minor, the French, and the Spanish, because you have to understand John has seen a vision. And the one is because at the time John was on Patmos, who was in power, those were the Romans. So that's still getting our count back up to what? 6. And the other is not yet come, which were the British. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space, going into the Revolutionary Wars, which brings us what? Full circle back to our Google search. All right. And the beast that was, which is the ancient Roman Empire, and is not, because Western Rome fell, Eastern Rome continued, that was led by Israelites. Okay, at some point became Byzantium and so on and so forth. And then eventually the Renaissance period happened and the Edomites came back into power. And America is a result of that history today moving forward. All right. So the beast that was ancient Roman Empire, and is not, because it failed at some point. Even he is the 8th, which is the 8th is talking about America. So the ancient Roman Empire is revived through America. Okay. Just like it's called spiritual Sodom and Egypt in the Bible. Okay. It's also like it's Assyria and, different places. This is just a balled up, I don't even know how to call it. Okay. Different kingdoms kind of mashed into one, or the likeness of different kingdoms mashed into one. America, that is. All right. The revival of the ancient Roman Empire, because the 8th is talking about America. And it's of the 7 that we mentioned: the Greeks, the Romans, Germania Major, Germania Minor, the French, the Spanish, and the British. And then we talked about the French, the Spanish, and the British, the Revolutionary Wars that established America. And now going once again back full circle to our Google search and that Monroe Doctrine and everything else, saying that this is no longer, up for grabs. This America that we built. No, the America that you stole. Okay. And there's a lot of atrocities on how they went about taking this place, and there was zero mercy, and there's going to be zero mercy for these devils when Yahushua takes them in the captivity, man. Okay. And it says, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which translated today you have the NATO EU, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Okay. So I'm not going to read any more on that, which we really didn't need that verse, but I just want to finish off that small topic there, because that's going into something else that has nothing to do with what we're reading now. So let's finish reading this. It's going back. So it says separate spheres. Europe and the Americas were distinct spheres with different political systems, and tying in with what the Revolutionary Wars, because they fought over territory from maybe even Canada. You could probably add Canada, but we'll just say from North America, especially along the coast, because it eventually spread, further west, from North America all the way down even into the northeastern sector of South America, and also covering Mesoamerica or Central America. All right. And you had them fighting over territory for gold and sugar and cotton, different resources that were originally under the care and watch of Israelites. All right. Non-intervention. The U.S. would not interfere in the internal affairs of European powers or their existing colonies. There's a scripture in Jeremiah that says, your mother shall be sore confounded. Your mother's talking about Great Britain. She that bare you. I forget how the rest of the verse goes. I guess we can pull it up just to grab another verse. I want to say it's in 51, but I might be wrong. It might be 50. It's either 50 or 51. Your mother shall be sore confounded. There you go. All right. Yes, 50. Your mother shall be sore confounded. Jeremiah 50:12. She that bare you shall be ashamed, because Britain was one of the 7, right? And the 8th is of the 7. The 8th is talking about America. And going to how, the Revolutionary Wars, the wars against the Israelites, and how this place was established, okay, which was rape, robbery, stealing, and killing, and broken treaties. And then it was built up off of those same people, their blood, sweat, and tears, Israelites. She that buries shall be ashamed. Behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness. So what's the hindermost of the nations? That's the mist, which is America. Shall be a what? A wilderness, a dry land in the desert. Why is it saying that? Because this place is going to be destroyed by nuclear missiles, which, if I'm correct, I think there's verses that go into it down below it. We'll hit the context. We're not going to go too far into it. Because of the wrath of Yahweh, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. You see? Wow. Nuclear missiles. Everyone that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at all her plagues. The destruction. No one's going to actually visit here. Okay, so don't get thrown off by the wording. Okay, yep, we'll stop right there because it goes into talking about these other countries. All right, headed by, Russia. Put yourselves in array against Babylon round about. All ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she hath sinned against Yahweh. Ba'ashim Yahushua. Yep, ready your nuclear missiles to blow this place up off the map. All right, let's go back. All right. Prohibition of intervention. Any attempt by European powers to interfere in the affairs of Western Hemisphere nations would be viewed as a dangerous, hostile act against the United States. So where was this energy when you came and raped, you robbed, you stole, and whatever else? We already in Jeremiah. Is it 15:5? Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, Jeremiah 15:5. For who shall have pity on thee, O Jerusalem? Or who shall bemoan thee? Or who shall go aside to ask how thou doest? Now, are they concerned about the Israelites? Absolutely not. They're concerned about other Edomites coming, and establishing their presence. Hey, the nerve of these devils, man. See if we have to read any of this. Yeah, let's read it anyways. It's short. Historical context and significance. Context. Following the Napoleonic Wars, many Spanish-American nations gained independence. The U.S. feared a holy alliance of European monarchs might help Spain, regain its colonies. Yeah, I think Spain was doing the most as far as territory-wise at some point, if I'm correct. Because they all had their little stakes, these different Edomite, factions. All right, but anyways, significance. While initially weak due to limited U.S. naval power, it became a cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy, later justified interventions in Latin America and the Caribbean. Impact. It shifted the U.S. from isolationism to a more proactive role, establishing a sphere of influence that defined U.S. Latin American relations for centuries. Initially, the doctrine was often enforced by the British Royal Navy, which shared an interest in preventing European expansion. In the 20th century, it was expanded upon by the Roosevelt corollary, justifying further U.S. intervention in the region. All right, so we can go back over here now as we read up on that. So finishing this, it says it was marked by nationalism, right, during the era of good feelings, negotiating the Louisiana Purchase, acquiring Florida, the Missouri Compromise, and issuing the seminal Monroe Doctrine, which warned European powers against further colonization or interference in the Americas. He was also the last of the founding fathers to serve as president, having a long career as a soldier and diplomat before his presidency. And I'm glad I just remembered, because I wanted to ask it and see if they give us a straightforward answer. And what we'll do is copy that, drop the AI mode, because sometimes they'll just give you what they want to give you. And we'll paste this here, President James Monroe, and see if they'll give us a straight answer. Was President James Monroe a Freemason? And we're not going to dive into it. I just want to pull it up. James Monroe was indeed a Freemason, which we knew, but I just wanted them to tell us. Initiated on November 19th, 1775. Look, at the age of 17. At age 17, into St. John's Regimental Lodge in the Continental Army. He was later associated with the Williamsburg Lodge No. 6 in Virginia. Historical records confirm his active involvement with evidence of his attendance at Masonic events as president. Okay? He was initiated at a young age before turning 18, which was acceptable at the time. And we don't have to read into all of that. And let me get another scripture real quick, because going back to what we were reading about the, pretty much the taking of America, right? Let's type in this: remove his neighbor's landmark. Because this is exactly what they violated. Because we understand the law was written, for Israelites, but doesn't mean that it doesn't still stand. And it talks about Esau breaking the brotherly covenant, right? Here it is right here. Deuteronomy 19:14. Thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's landmark, which they of old time had set in thine inheritance. See? Our inheritance. Now, of course, it's not written in the scriptures that we would inherit the Western countries in, South Central Northern America. But history proves that we Israelites came here before anyone else. Okay? So it's only the so-called white man, the Edomite, who can come and take over a country. Like he was talking about Greenland. Oh, it's not their land just because they had boats there, years ago or whatever. I'm sure we had ships there too. An asshole, right? But what about the Americas? You see, they never want to talk about the history of how this country was established. Instead, what do? They threw out black fatigue when that didn't work. Or was it a law or something? Whatever bill, I don't know. They basically try to make it so now, instead of addressing it, white people no longer have to be guilty about their history and all this stuff. No, you niggas is going into captivity, man. Okay, believe like my man said on the Django movie, and believe that. It's talking about Django coming out. He's gonna kill his girl, his wife. Yeah, believe that. All right, in my Samuel L. Jackson slave voice. All right, that's what's coming for you, man. Because you will get paid back for every big and small thing that you have done, everything that has been uncovered, and everything that has not been yet uncovered, man. And the Lord is on your heels. All right. Thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's landmark, which they of old time has set in thy inheritance, which thou shalt inherit in the land of the Yahweh. Thy power give it to thee to possess it. To thee meaning to us Israelites. Okay. So once again, it may not be written in part of our promised lands, but we did come over here to the west and acquire these lands before anyone else. All right. And no, those Africans didn't either. Hiram's men leaving the Olmec heads or whatever. That was just them, because no one actually lived here. They came here, they did their stuff, and they went home. So however long they were camped out, that's exactly what they were doing. They were camping out, gathering what they needed to gather for King Solomon, and going back. That was it. No one actually has lived here and set up until the Northern Kingdom came here first. All right, and the Southern Kingdom came here by slave trades. Okay. Going up above, Proverbs 23:10, remove not the old landmark and enter not into the fields of the fatherless. Come on, man. It's straightforward. And Proverbs 22:28, remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set. Enough said. Let's go back. Okay. So he was also the last of the founding fathers to serve as president, having a long career as a soldier and diplomat before his presidency. Okay. I'll drop it down. I want to see. Okay, so I can still get down there. All right, so key accomplishments and contributions. Monroe Doctrine, 1823, a cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy, declaring the American continents closed to future European colonization and interference, which we already read. Louisiana Purchase, 1803. As a diplomat, he helped negotiate this massive acquisition of territory from France. Okay, really, the territory belonged to Israelites, man, so-called Native Americans. All right, and even you would get down to this what was his name, Andrew Jackson character. All right, the same time period, 1800s, 30s, around the time the Trail of Tears and the forced removal of our people off of our land. Okay, and they did the same thing because we mentioned the Seminoles, because you had the Seminoles that who were not in line with their agreements and treaties or whatever. It's like, no, this ain't, we're not doing this. But then you had some that were. And so what the devil did was, those that were okay with the treaty and the documents or whatever, they took it as, okay, these people were okay with it. So even though these people weren't okay with it, we're going to take it that all of you were okay with it. And then they still put the same force. So they put those that were okay with these faulty treaties were backstabbed, and those that weren't okay with it, there's nothing they could do about it. They got all put in the same bunch, and the same thing still happens to all of them. Okay, and that's how the devil deals. And these other nations are starting to wake up and see the devil deal with them, which we don't care because you're heathens. All right, Revelation 17 again. Okay, you jumped into bed with her. All right. So anyways, territorial expansion, acquired Florida from Spain through the Adams-Onis Treaty in 1819, which we talked about, will be covered talking about the tribe of Reuben. All right, that was one of the things that were, I believe, in when we talked about Reuben, that came up, the Adams-Onis Treaty. Okay, 1819. Missouri Compromise, 1820, an attempt to balance free and slave states, addressing growing sectional tensions. And what he was pretty much a hypocrite. All right. Era of good feelings, a period of relative political unity and national purpose during his presidency, following the War of 1812. And it says Revolutionary War veteran, fought in significant battles like Trenton and Monmouth, and was the last president with Revolutionary War service. All right, a long political career, served as governor of Virginia, U.S. Senator, Secretary of State, and Secretary of War. Yeah, bravo. Here it is. This is something else I found interesting. Not exactly on target as what the topic was of the video, but it says, what race was enslaved 400 years? I thought this was interesting because this is pretty much a link to anybody with the common sense to understand it. Okay, the race enslaved for approximately 400 years in the Americas, particularly in the context of the transatlantic slave trade and its legacy in the United States, were people of, it says African descent, but we're not Africans. These were Israelites. Okay, and you might think, well, why is this so important? Why I'm reading this? Because our forefather Abraham, okay, he did. Now let me separate the two. Okay, what the vision he had about us was about the Israelites being in the Egyptian captivity, because some people go off on that understanding there. That was about the Egyptian captivity. What I'm pointing out is here the whole 400 years thing, and then you have Deuteronomy 28, Isaiah 22nd chapter. You have the slave ships that are in the Bible. Okay, so it just so happens to be the same number 400 years that is mentioned here, which I thought was very interesting there. Now, once again, separating the two and understanding that what Abraham saw in Genesis was about the Egyptian captivity. It was not talking about the transatlantic slave trade, but yet the transatlantic slave trade is also still in the scriptures, man. Okay, so you can't make this stuff up. And they keep calling us Africans and stuff like that. No, these were Israelites, man. Tell the truth, okay? Which they're never going to tell the truth. What's that? Revelation chapter 11. Except for their dead bodies not to be put in graves. In other words, tell us who we are. They're going to keep calling us Africans or whatever. And when you come across the real dude Africans, a lot of them don't like you, and they will not claim you as their own because you're not them. They are Hamitic nations, and we are from the line of Shem, as well as these same Edomites. They're from the line of Shem. But anyways, I just thought this was interesting to read real quick. I know it was a side topic, but I think you kind of get my point. It says they were. It says forcibly brought from Africa to serve as labor. And why were we in Africa? The history of why we were in Africa is because we had to flee out of Jerusalem from the Romans. All right, 70 A.D. And we were scattered. Many were killed. Many were taken captive. And the bulk of us that scattered went to different places, but the bulk of us went into Africa, and eventually we were picked up in that transatlantic slave trade from Africa. All right, and you had slaves that were coming from, first from Spain. All right, even because I've been trying to get together a little lesson. I want to figure out how I'm doing, so I just been working on it slowly. But Irish, all right, a lot of those Irish were Israelites. They were brought over here into the Americas, okay, to the islands. Both dark skin and individuals that have pale skin, because not everyone with pale skin are just all Edomites. Some of them are Israelites. Because our history is vast, man. Okay? And that's why the Lord has the parable of the wheats and the tares. Okay? Yeah, it says they were forcibly brought from Africa to serve as labor, primarily in chattel slavery, marking the start of this brutal system in 1619 in Virginia. Yep, Jamestown, Virginia. All right, Point Comfort, White Line, Good Ship Jesus, so many slave ships. But White Line is definitely one that's mentioned all the time. They put it in the movie too. Okay. And we're not going to read more than that because, like I said, that's another topic there. But I just wanted to bring that up for a small side topic. All right, before we closed off. All right, because I knew we would talk about something else. And as a matter of fact, that's pretty much it. Man, let's get one more. Let's get one more to close on, and I'll probably play that video for you again, and that'll be the end of the lesson. Let's get Revelation 13, a scripture I haven't been to in a while. 13:10. If any man have an ear, let him hear. Those that have the knowledge, the wisdom, and understanding to perceive what's being said here, what was written here. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints. And we know the scriptures tell us in Psalms 148:14, the saints are you children of Israel. All right, so hey, the Lord, there's definitely more scriptures we can get and pull out, just to continue stomping on these devils. But ultimately, we're in that time period where the Lord is going to come and bring all that justice back, and it's going to come upon them. All right, because they're not getting away with anything that they did. Okay, and that they're currently doing. But we're going to leave it at that. Lord willing, you edify. To next time, I'm going to say,
Shalom. To recuperate in the 1950s. So this park, along with portions of the Florida Keys Overseas Heritage Trail and Coupon Bright Aquatic Preserve, will now be part of the Spotswood Heritage Trail as well. So James Monroe's legacy is built on service, sacrifice, and vision. His Monroe Doctrine established our country as the guardian of the hemisphere. He obviously had huge impact by making sure that Florida became part of the American Republic. We're proud to honor him today. I think, are we going to hear from the speakers and then do this? Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we unveil it, and then we'll call up Cord, and we'll call up these other guys. Go ahead. There you go, guys. All right. Handsome devil there. He looks good. All right. All right, Cord.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Governor, and thank you to Monroe County. This is Florida weather. This feels like Florida, so thank you for doing that. But one of the things that people don't often think about is the Florida's significance at the founding, and that's why we've billed our 250th anniversary initiative as the 14th colony. So we're really telling that history. And James Monroe understood the strategic importance of Florida, which the governor reiterated in his remarks. And it is fitting that on July 3rd, 1823, Monroe County was named in his honor. Every mile of coastline and acre of our beautiful landscape serve as a monument to a president who saw the potential of Florida, its resources, and its strategic geographical placement as an asset to the building and protection of the nation. And today, just as in President Monroe's era, Florida continues to play an important role on the global stage, with Florida leading the way and setting the pace for the rest of the country, and our commemoration of America 250 is no exception. And when I was preparing for today, I always like to have a quote or two of who we're discussing, and I really like this one from President Monroe. He says, "Our country may be likened to a new house. We lack many things, but we possess the most precious of all, liberty." And that is why the governor has built Florida the free state of Florida. We are the free state of Florida. We are the free people, whether it's under COVID or even today. We're leading the rest of the nation, and we're really leaning into 250 and the celebration. And really, it's incumbent upon us, the older generations, to teach our young people about what's happening. Last week,